If you're a frequent customer of Samsung the way that I am, you purchase everything from your TV and 4K players, from tablets and cell phones from the trusted brand. If you're already using Jabra headsets as your preferred audio tech provider, like I plan to very soon, then you know they provide a whole host of listening electronics ranging from workout earbuds, Bluetooth music headsets, and office hearing devices. If you use the link in the description for either Samsung or Jabra purchases, it'll help the channel out tremendously. With the promotional considerations accounted for, it's on with the show. This is a flick that I have been anticipating since it was initially due for debut in April of 2020. Not only that, but this is the sole horror film I most looked forward to releasing since the 2019 Richard Stanley's Color Out of Space, which just so happens to be my channel's first film review. The introductory text confirms the trailer allusions to this movie monster's identity as, indeed, a Wendigo. For the uninitiated, a bloodthirsty beast of Native American lore that actually grows hungrier the more flesh it consumes. I usually don't like gray color grade with colors washed out, especially when it comes to scenery, but man, this film's opening. It sets the right mood considering its cold environment. It reminds me of the beginning of the film Prometheus, which is about the only thing that film got right. A child in a truck awaiting his father at a factory overhears a distant roar from the not-too-distant forest. As chilling of a snarl as it is, even from afar, what's immediately more alarming is when the dread sets in that whatever caused that howl is heading closer. While the father and a friend take the edge off of a hard day's work with some extracurricular activities, let's call it, it's clear that when the Breaking Bad boys hear what sounds like a party crasher interrupting their fun at Club Meth, it won't be a typical day at the office.
Let's get high.
No, not you. And also, maybe later. The son leaves the safety of the car in search of his father in the darkness and finds him barely alive, bleeding and bludgeoned. The tension as the father and friend search the pitch-black mines for the trespasser, and the son staring into the shadows made for some genuinely nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat material. So, solid opener.
3 weeks later.
From our meth lab manslaughter, we switch gears to a lesser crime scene, a grammar school classroom, and holy 90s, is that Felicity? Wow, where has she been? I guess you just never know where CW actresses will turn up. So, Felicity, having traded her college credits for this teaching gig, shares with her students the class assignment for the day, a lecture on fairy tales and its origins with Native American lore. It may sound redundant or on the nose, but I like films that open up about storytelling, whether in Candyman where they're sourcing urban legends, not you, remake, or when they're pulling back the curtain on fairy tales and fantasy myth. No, not you either, Resident Evil 8 posing as Harry Potter for some reason. I always interpret it as anticipation for the design of a brand new folklore about to unfold before you. I gotta say, right off the bat, the casting for the lead character, the son, was spot on. This kid looks sickly and unwell. Speaking of character, I like how they subtly reveal Felicity is struggling with hitting the sauce. Considering we saw the father at the beginning giving in to his own addiction, I'll take that as the film's clever suggestion of people dealing with their demons. We're given hints as to why Felicity suffers from withdrawal from alcohol, as we're clued into her tragic past with childhood trauma. This is a pretty key character reveal, as it doesn't just establish her identity, but also serves the plot, as Felicity feels compelled to help the boy whom she fears may also be suffering abuse. Top marks for character motivation. On the topic of the boy, not only is it obvious, though the deadbeat dad survived his encounter, it clearly changed him for the worse, but It is the lengths that his son now has to go through in order to remain under the same roof as him that is deeply heartbreaking. Considering he has to care for the guardian that's supposed to be caring of him, and has to resort to keeping his parent under lock and key for his own safety, it's apparent that the toll that this turnabout has taken on a boy that young has changed him too, and he's got the complexion to prove it. I know I previously mentioned it, but it's at night when he's home in the belly of the beast, when his pale skin, disheveled hair, and sunken eyes come into full effect. Once class is in session and the man-cub Mowgli reads aloud his book report, his recital of the three bears is about as eerie and cryptic as you'd expect for a kid to be in a horror film. His fairy tale takes a turn for the carnivorous, much to the horror of Felicity. If she had suspicions before that this kid is going through the grind, her fears were damn near kicked into overdrive by now. Teacher is teetering on DEFCON 5. After his run-in with the school bully, Felicity decides to keep tabs on Mowgli, even following him about town. When she takes him out for dessert, she attempts to reach out to the man-cub with some banter, talking about ice cream as her favorite vegetable. It is an endearing scene and is a clever attempt to establish rapport with her student. When the conversation shifts to Mowgli's father, his vegetables must have soured because he loses his appetite, and on his way out, reveals his awareness to the teacher of her pursuit of him. Back at school, when there's talk amongst the adults of the whereabouts of Mowgli's younger brother, a child's drawing really should be raising more than a red flag or 12. As messed up as it is for a kid to resort to scouring for roadkill and carrion, what he's forced to do with it afterwards is even more mortifying once he's nabbed his catch of the day. Watching Mowgli assume the role of butcher as he prepares a meal for his inmate father makes for one distressing scene that hits you right in the feels, but ain't half as harrowing as when you discover that dear old dad's got company. Most of Mowgli's character is conveyed through his actions rather than his words. He forgoes typical horror stereotypes by actually reinforcing the locked door and actively ignoring the calls to him from what lies beyond the door. With apprehension roused between the school board members, a certain someone pays a house call to Mowgli's home. And you know that part in movies where you see all the telltale signs, where you get that funny feeling?
Call it women's intuition or ESPN or both, but I can tell when danger's near. I just...
Where you're staring down a dark hallway and say to yourself, that's a whole lot of not my damn problem. Well, one character was smart enough to tuck tail and bail at the first sign of trouble. You are smart. I award you a 1-life power-up to remain unmangled. If teacher is surprised by students' books on animal traps and spirits, she should see how Nancy Thompson is catching up with her reading down the hall.
Well, what are you reading that for?
I'm into survival.
As the stakes begin to rise in the film, Felicity is definitely feeling that weight, finding trouble coping and fighting the urge to booze. Fortunately, a sobering development unfolds with the remains discovered in the woods, which has got to be working wonders for Felicity's abstinence, right? Am I right? What the film has in store next is a lethal combination of dread.
Double whammy. Double whammy.
At one point, Mowgli asks the disturbing question, is God really dead? Spurred on by all the horror surrounding him. Which, can there be anything sadder than that? This downhearted downturn is followed up with how hopeless the state of the monster's affliction is when they violently reject normal food, meaning this hunger for flesh seems irreversible. So on that note, how about we make this double shot of dire a triple? The coroner's report of the remains found in the forest sees a cadaver torn to ribbons, which If I can just take a moment for an observation, this is what corpses should look like in movies. Exposed bones, missing chunks of meat, and utterly disfigured. Take note, zombie movies. Back to the review. The point is, this movie ain't screwing around. Hey, remember when I spoke about how one character averted disaster when noticing the red flags? Well, one character doesn't, and let's just say gets served up like vegetables. If curiosity killed the cat, you have to wonder if it played with its food in a game of skin the cat. It's at this moment in the movie I had to ask myself, after a year of so many mundane offerings and lackluster releases, not to mention an entire summer of duds, I posed the question to myself, has a film finally done the unthinkable and delivered a solid, scary story? Why, yes.
Finally!
One cliche that's understandably inescapable in horror cinema is, a child's whimpering always draws the caring heart, like lambs to the slaughter. As much as I would have expected the rivalry with a certain character at school to be drawn out, the monster quickly rearranges his student body.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Returning to his home turned crime scene, Mowgli's worst fears are realized, discovering his home empty. He conceals the evidence, showing how intuitive and resourceful he is to ensure attention isn't drawn to his, happy home. Felicity's snooping pays off, and once the fuzz get involved, the remains of the victim aren't even half as disturbing as what remains of the villain. You'll just have to see to believe.
A beautiful butterfly.
When Mowgli returns, Felicity has him brought to the hospital for evaluation, which confirms she couldn't be more sorry to have been right all along that he was in need of rescuing. Her pursuit of redemption leads to an argument with her brother, the chief of police. Did I mention that? She got a brother, chief of police? I must have mentioned that. Their quarrel over past trauma deepens Felicity's plight concerning current events, and nicely dovetails into flashbacks of Patient Zero, dear old dad, self-quarantining as he descended into madness. Providing findings, too, a Native American sees the plot thicken with the telling of the Wendigo legend, where Teacher is the one given a lesson with this cautionary tale. Now under her care, Felicity opens up about her past, hoping it will strengthen her bond with her man-cub. However, when Mowgli in turn speaks candidly about dear old dad, it's saddening and haunting hearing what he thinks the solution is from a child's eyes. Which, I have to say, when this kid acts intelligently, it ingratiates you to him. When he acts like a kid, it ramps up the fear factor of the film. His drawings, these descriptions of events from a youngster's impression, it makes for a really interesting character dichotomy. Mowgli's acknowledgement of what was coming next unnervingly set the tone, as well as my hair on end for what was to proceed. This being a horror movie, you already know that the cops will, and frankly should, prove unable to offset the danger, but the slow burn suspense the movie feeds to you in the build-up to that epiphany is drawn out to the very last moment to white knuckle effect. There is a slight flub in the script towards the finale, but not enough to be a plot hole or detract from the characters. I thought it a great narrative choice in where the finale takes place as the Heart of Darkness comes full circle. As a general rule in scary movies, you don't reveal your monster until the end, and all I can tell you is that the face of fear this creature dons is worth the price of admission. The combination of lighting and darkness, smoke and CGI really pulled you in and pulled off this creature effect. Even when this threat is vanquished and the day is won, the story still has one final trick up its sleeve to tug at the heartstrings and go out in memorable fashion. What a movie. As nerve-wracking as this film could be with its suspense, I'd be lying that I didn't have that creeping sensation in the back of my mind begging, please don't suck. Please don't suck. Please don't suck. Well, horror fans and film buffs, your horror host Inkarnate is here to tell you to watch this flick. My only abiding wish when watching this film was that it had played at a drive-in theater instead of just at the cinema, but that's not the film's fault. For such a simple premise, it delivers in spades. This motion picture serves as proof positive that movies about lycanthropy can still work. The musical score is pitch perfect and practically plays your emotions like a harp. Mine is a young channel, but despite having recently celebrated my 1-year anniversary, I've waited for a movie like this for over 24 months. The inclusion of the past character trauma gets right what the Pet Sematary remake got wrong. I wasn't expecting this level of body horror, but it was a welcome surprise to say the least. The end fight could have been longer, as the setting that they chose to close the movie out with could have been more deeply explored, but that's more missed opportunity than deal breaker. Oh, and if any shill media website tries to credit Guillermo del Toro with this movie's resplendent brilliance, I would laughably pose the question to you. What in the hell have you ever seen from this guy's body of work that is even on par with Antlers? What, that crappy Mimic movie? How about Grinding Nemo? Nah, kill that noise. I ain't hearing it. This movie was all the writing and direction to which Del Toro contributed to neither. Anyway, even though I referred to the lead character as Mowgli, he was actually the opposite, as he was put in the situation where he was raising wolves. Speaking of, if the theme of the holiday is feasting, if we have yet to see a werewolf movie about Thanksgiving, I'm damn proud that we at least got a Wendigo film for Halloween. So screw your Netflix The Ritual.
Screw your past.
And get out there to the theaters to support this film. It's the best movie I've seen in years. It's the best movie you'll see in years. As for me, I've been Inkarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. As for you and my channel...